Hello, everybody. We are live with Nicole Strafaci at the Claustrophobic Boudoir Year 50 Gallery Talk at MGalleries. Hi, Nicole.
How are you?
Hello. Thanks for everybody for watching. And so let's just jump right into it. So we were just talking about the Spanish flu pandemic and how there was this podcast that I was listening to, but how that not a lot of art was made during the pandemic because it was just too traumatic, and not a lot of people were aware of what happened, during the pandemic. So I feel like this show sort of touches on the issues that were missing from about 100 years ago. So what do you think, Nicole?
Well, I was home for several months for the most part, like everyone else. To me, there was nothing else that really made sense, but then to process it through art, being an artist, it seemed like all the questions that were happening in my mind about understanding what was going on, I was able to process that through art making. And there were definitely days, even that always happen, even not during a pandemic, that you sort of wonder, what the point is, about getting in there, and it's a struggle. But then once you're in there, it always it begins to flow, and you completely realize why you're in there. I don't know. It was just, it was really, it was incredibly important to process everything.
Correct. Yeah.
And I realized that. There were days where I thought, there's so much happening, what is this really helping the situation? And then I thought, well, yes, of course it's helping. It's putting, beauty out into the world, and it's documenting the times in a personal way that is extremely important.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. And, do you want to talk about the namesake of the show here? So this piece, Claustrophobic Boudoir.
Yeah, so the show is called Claustrophobic.
Oh, and by the way, in the comments you'll see a list of the work that we're going to be showing and talking about. So just a heads up if you're curious about anything. Sorry, go ahead.
No. Thanks for remembering to say that. Appreciate that. So the title of the show is called Claustrophobic Boudoir, and it also has a year 50 after the title, in parentheses, which actually a friend of mine told me that he thought I wanted to put my mark. It happened to coincide with my 50th birthday, so I wanted to somehow include that in there without it being sort of, happy birthday to me, kind of. But a friend of mine actually commented on the fact that it was sort of like that claustrophobic boudoir, in the pandemic, it feels like 50 years or more. It just feels sort of endless when you're in that space of. So claustrophobia was sort of a state of mind, kind of that, being enclosed, not being able to have the normal activities that you would normally have, and being in your home space with sort of a lot of, just what that interior landscape looks like, sort of mentally what it looks like, what you do when you're sort of going through, when you sort of have to face yourself, really, because you're not, there's not a lot of distractions happening as normal.
Fewer distractions,
Yeah, there's fewer distractions. So just the idea of creating your own sort of entertainment.
Yeah.
Help me out.
Oh, and sure, of course. Yeah.
Also the boudoir, the claustrophobic boudoir, kind of like that. Boudoir is kind of a sort of your going into your interior space, your personal sort of world. Boudoir is kind of a very sort of a very personal space.
Correct.
A dressing room, a boudoir.
Right, a dressing room. Right.
So
a claustrophobic version of it. is an interesting thought. Like, because it's sort of like claustrophobic to begin with, in a sense, right? Or it's supposed to be like an internal space, so it's like an internal space of an internal space.
It's kind of like, it's sort of like the claustrophobia is both sort of like internal, like emotional, sort of that feeling of like, oh my God, we're like everything's been sort of simplified, but it feels so like I can't do this and I can't do that and I can only do this.
Yeah.
But yet there's so much that sort of floods in from that, like so many emotions, and it's just like, that's really what led me into my studio every day to process that, because that was the only thing that really made sense to me, and I'm so glad that I did.
Yeah.
And also I'd like to talk about the black a little bit. You'll see a couple of pieces that I'm going to talk about today in the show have a lot of black. I used black gesso, actually, and there was something very therapeutic, actually, about working with the black, not as a way to, and it wasn't just about sort of darkness either. Like, of course, black has like a heaviness to it, and it's blackness. There's a lot associated with the color black, and a lot of emotional connotation too, but it was sort of like, for me, it was like the sort of building of my pieces. There's a lot of layers going on here, and then it was kind of like it's sort of like a building up of the textures, and then sort of organizing the chaos through the black, sort of, by like sort of, and also like sort of emotional markings to kind of deal with everything that was going on, and then leaving these places of light, which we all like, which were extremely important. So both like in lamps in your house, going outside, in nature, just light in general, emotional ways to get to feel lighter.
Yeah. Oh, and just Marianne says hello.
Hi, Marianne.
So, and just want to share,
you?
please feel free to ask questions. I can read the questions and I'll ask them of Nicole as we go along. So feel free to interrupt us with questions. We would love to hear.
Thanks for coming. Did she just pop on?
Yeah, she said hello, everyone.
Oh, good. You popped on when I'm like rolling now. At the beginning, I was stumbling a little bit, but I'm on a roll now, so it should be good.
Yeah, so that was one thing I was saying from last show to this show, how the black is so prominent, and I feel like I like that idea that you just brought up, that it's not just like darkness. There's some kind of like way to, it's like the armature for the painting.
Yeah, it was a way to sort of illuminate things in the darkness for me.
Yeah.
Which was very important, know?
Yeah.
Like finding the ways to get through all the emotions by creating and by taking walks in nature. I mean, fortunately, I live in Frenchtown, and there's a lot of space to do that.
Yeah,
so,
right.
That was part of the light too. And you can see there's like sort of, to talk a little bit about the imagery that I chose, there's a lot of sort of furniture pieces. There's some nature imagery going on, a lot of sort of like, sort of compartments, sort of, and boxes.
Like surfaces on surfaces.
There's actually a collage on top of another collage that I sort of
right.
reworked here. So it's like sort of like a doorway, like going into your home. Like, where do you go psychologically? Where do you go physically to deal with what you're dealing with? Yeah.
Excellent. You want to move on?
Should we move on to another one? Yeah.
Home haircut.
Yeah, home haircut.
Here comes home haircut.
Perfect. I picked this piece to talk about because I wanted to talk a little bit about I wanted to touch on the titling of my pieces, which happens sort of it happens at the end when a piece is finished, when I know it's finished. It's usually very clear to me what the title is, and I don't think about it too much. It's kind of almost like a little voice that I hear in my head. And one of the things about the pandemic that I found like really fascinating was that as far as watching the news and listening to social media and talking to friends on video, like all over the country, in other countries, wherever they everyone was sort of dealing with the same thing. So that was in different ways, of course. Like, we were all kind of coming from a similar point and then reacting to it in wildly different ways, depending on what our situation was before the pandemic.
Right. Interesting psychological experiment.
Yes. So, some people were like wondering where they were going to live, and other people were, worried about, I mean, it was all sort of like, there was kind of like normal things that were happening in life that couldn't happen. Like, for example, like getting a haircut.
Yes.
So there was
right.
like tons of social media about people that were cutting their own hair. And it was really important to me to find humor in this time also. And there was a lot of it. There were people, like videos of people, I'm sure everyone saw sort of dance parties at home and like, look, I cut my own hair and like, don't look at the back of it, but the front looks good, that kind of thing. So, or my mom cut my hair. So there's sort of like, so I had fun with that piece because of that. There's also a lot of heavy collage, a lot of sort of like vibrating kind of colors in this one, which also was kind of different from some of the other ones. It has a real whimsical quality to it, I think. Also I had fun with the line. The line drawing was often like at the end, and that was like sort of another element in expression.
Right, like on top. Like
yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So, and then that one also has the black in the hair. I had a really great time creating that kind of really wacky haircut, and there's like sort of some hair at the bottom there too. But it also has like a lot of like, there's like a ton of like sort of building up all the layers and like finding the sort of like truth in the layers, kind of. Does that make sense?
I like that. Yeah, truth in the layers.
Yeah, it's also it has a house, a sort of there's a house kind of image coming out of it too.
Yeah, and like the one of the other things that I've noticed was pretty striking was how much information is in the work now, like versus last year, and I have like a nice vantage point. Stephen Brown says congratulations.
Hi, Steve. This is from LA.
Oh well, welcome.
Yeah.
And but how that it's like dense. It's like dense with information. And there's something really, really heavy and interesting about that, and like that in combination with the black, like just pulls you in. It's like a black hole, like this dense star, that's pulling you in.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a show last year, the same month, last August also, and that's what Frank was referring to. And it's been interesting to get comments like comparing the show to shows.
Yeah, that's a benefit,
because there has been a lot of growth for me creatively in the past year, but also I think my work has always tended to be very personal.
Yeah.
But I really felt like this situation that everyone was going through with the pandemic, and there was something very connective about it for me that I think helped to really grow my work too, because it was inspired by my own experience, but also everyone else's, my sort of processing of what their experience was. So that, I think, helped to grow my work. It helped to sort of, if that makes sense, like just sort of like pull me out of like an interior space and connect, and then come back to it was more of a sort of in and out process. Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah, certainly.
Yeah. But also, like, it was really challenging for me to build up all the layers, and I'm not quite sure. I mean, I think it definitely came out of working more, creating more art over this past year, but like building up all the layers and then finding what the kind of focus was within all the layers, whereas as opposed to like sort of I don't know. It was a different process. This work is a different process for sure. But that's good. I mean, I love that. I mean, we all want to grow creatively and in other ways, right? So, yeah.
Did you attempt a home haircut?
I did not attempt a home haircut.
Likewise.
So I did a home haircut many years ago, and it was a total nightmare, and never again. I was really, I won't even cut, I don't have bangs, but I wouldn't even cut my bangs, no. It's okay. I kind of, that was part of my process, too, to kind of, to deal with it. I mean, really, like a haircut was kind of insignificant for me and compared to what everything else was going on. But, I can certainly understand.
Mm-hmm.
I was entertained by all the haircuts that I was seeing, but I did not attempt one. No.
Fair enough. Yeah, it seemed a little bit too daunting. The idea, just to let it go until next oprimopportunity.
I had a haircut from a neighbor when I was a kid who used to cut my hair in my backyard, and one time she trimmed a little piece of my ear off.
Oh.
So I kind of haircuts are kind of emotional for me.
Oh gosh.
Okay. But anyway, I still have them. They're here.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, God, that's awful.
Anyway,
I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm still here.
Still good, right?
Yeah.
All right.
So.
Yeah. Well, let's move. You want to move on to psycho-surreal here? That's
okay.
Like the contrast to titles are interesting. Home haircut to psycho-surreal.
Yeah, this one has a much sort of more psychological feel to it.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'm not sure if I should zoom in too close because of the.
Yeah, we don't want to. Yeah.
There's some. We'll address like why I'm reluctant to zoom in a little bit.
Okay. Did you want to say anything about that?
No.
Okay.
We'll go.
Okay.
Just
Okay.
Later. Yeah.
So this piece, obviously has a lot of sort of interior imagery in it. There's a lot of furniture and. There's sort of like, sort of a child's life with the crib, and then like sort of addressing family life, and then there's like this completely other life going on with these awesome nudie cards that I had collected many years ago in vintage cards actually from Tijuana.
I was looking at those cards, and I'm almost sure now that I had a deck. Like, I wonder if they reuse those images over and over again. Like, if it seems
I think so.
It seems very familiar.
Yeah.
Like those I had like when in high school we passed around the deck. I was like, these seem very familiar. Something about that.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think they're vintage. I think but they keep reprinting them.
Mm-hmm.
I think the vintage imagery.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Yeah, the imagery, right.
This one also has a lot of sort of like other like windows to look into.
Yeah,
it has like a collage on top of a collage, and then I built up these layers for a long time, and then the drawing of the woman's torso came at the very end, and that was a really great moment actually because it just sort of. Like I just intuitively started drawing, and then
the figure,
and then it was a figure, and it worked perfectly to tie it together.
Yeah,
I think it brought it made sense for the piece, and it also has because of that figure. I think it has a very sort of detailed, oriented up close, and then it works from further away too.
Yeah, right.
Which is actually really important to me in my work, especially when I work bigger, because I've done a lot of smaller work, and I have worked bigger. So that said, the details of a small piece and the intimacy of a small piece are very important to me. So how do you sort of use that kind of, like still maintain that feeling of sort of intimacy, but then have a piece work on a larger scale?
Oh, yeah.
Because you can't say the same things on a larger scale exactly that you can on a smaller scale and have them work. I don't. For me, anyway, it was never effective. And because you're looking at a bigger piece, and the experience of making the piece is not sitting at a desk working at the piece. And this one's not that big. It's like 22 by 28, but it's still a piece that I have to get some distance from to see.
Yeah, for sure.
So, so there's a creating on a close to the piece, and then further away. And that's really important to me, actually. That it's kind of almost like two different experiences, like a full experience.
Oh yeah. Well, we have Pete Mountford. He says hi, Nicole.
Oh, he's from England.
Yes, sure him.
Wow, I am so impressed.
Yeah.
What time is it there?
Right.
I can't remember.
And also we have a hello from Christine Schwartz.
Oh, that's my aunt.
Oh. So hi, Pete and Christine. Thanks for joining us. So.
So the
kind of like with home haircut. I feel like you did the black on top to kind of bind it, like with the hair.
Yeah.
The same thing with the figure here. You know.
Oh, right. That's true. Yes.
There's this consistency there.
Yeah, it helps to have you, like someone else, especially your eye. You have a great eye for art, Frank.
Oh, thank you.
Like to make a comment like that, because when you're so in the process of creating something, it's not like I have an order, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's instinctive. So
yeah, it kind of reminded me of Sigmar Polka or David Sally. You know, like I feel like that they did like these outlined figures on top of these, right? And I thought that was really strange and interesting, and I love your this version of that. You know, on top of the collage. Is it oil?
It's
pastel?
oil pastel
on
top.
Oh, that's such a line, right? Like it's such a great line that it creates.
Well, the color is so rich.
Yeah.
You know, and to use that sort of heavy black again, like if I had used black paint on my piece, like the black gesso was really what I needed to like black it out.
Yeah,
you know, like a black that like it just like so opaque.
Yeah.
You know. Right? Is that the right?
That's
word?
Yeah.
Like
opaque.
And so the line of the black oil pastel was similar, but also this piece, the sort of nudie cards were kind of like also a reflection. I mean, you could see some of the faces. There's sort of a darkness about them. Most of the faces are painted out.
Yeah.
And there's sort of like a dark energy around with the black, and then you see the sort of the baby crib, and it's just like, wait, what? What's going on? So that sort of was a reference to like, I don't think I've ever been so inspired directly by like, I mean, there was so much happening in the news, and like I said, so many people were reacting to it in different ways depending on their situation. I mean, I was fortunate that I have an apartment that I love to go home to that felt like comfortable and safe, but there were a lot of people that like don't even want to be in their houses for various reasons. So that was going on, and also like the whole idea of like sort of being behind closed doors and what's happening in a house. Like we don't really know what happens in people's houses. So they're not going out, so their life is like inside and what's really happening in there. It's, you know, a lot of things. So there's babies living, maybe there's babies being created. There's
right.
like unfortunately, you know, domestic abuse, things
right,
like
could
that.
Could be
there was
all
a lot,
all the darkness.
So I was trying to I was feeling all that weight, even though I wasn't experiencing those things directly. I was talking with people and feeling all of those emotions and processing them through my work.
Yeah. Also, it comes back to the boudoir idea. You know, that
very much.
The boudoir is supposed to be like an intimate place where you could undress, you know, and change, and it brings up that idea, you know, about this intimacy also. You know, that you're in that space within the space. For sure.
And that was something, you know, like also like if no one's at your house, like you don't even have to get dressed, you know?
Yeah, right.
People were talking about like walking around naked or being in
your
pajamas all day.
Right, or barely getting what you normally do.
Yeah, so that's a very personal sort of, like friends that I have that were, you know, fortunate enough to be working from their houses during the pandemic and still had jobs, were talking about how they suddenly knew all these things about their coworkers' lives because they saw like their kid running into their room or their wife like making them coffee or whatever. Anyway.
That's
interesting.
That's very interesting. Yeah, it's a very good point. Yeah, that's this a fascinating thing that's happening, you know, on top of the negativity. You know, all this like positive, you know, it's interesting stuff, you know, if you look at it from a certain perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, like people were talking about the silver lining thing. I mean,
it's
such a cliche sort of statement, but it is true.
Yeah,
and there were so many like things that people were appreciating that they had sort of lost touch with, you know, because they didn't have time for it.
Yes, right. Now there was.
They were kind of just running the rat race all the time, and so that was going on too. And people were so appreciated that they could take a walk outside, and like, you know. Yeah. So. Absolutely. Yeah. All right. You want to move on to the stay-at-home journals? Yeah. All right. So we're going to look at the one. It's not about you as a specific, but it's a part of a larger body of work here. So that's the piece. Who's
Yeah, it's not about you. Number.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the one right there.
How are we doing on the call? Are there? Hello to everyone that's there.
Oh, and just want to reiterate that you're welcome to ask questions. Please feel free. We're going to answer all of them that we see. So please feel free to do that.
Cool. So the stay-at-home journals there's 19 pieces on the wall, and I wanted to touch on them and talk about this one specifically. Just to pick one that I thought was interesting, but that has so these were all kind of works on paper, relatively like about 8.5 by 11.5 works on paper, and they were really like the thing that I went to regularly to kind of process things more immediately, like I could, as opposed to a painting, which I'd have to go back to over time and like rework and look at over time. These were more immediate, sort of almost like a sketchbook of what was happening for me. So it was really helpful to process things.
It's almost like the direct documentation, of
I
COVID.
keep moving. Am I blocking?
No, you're fine. Yeah,
Okay.
You're good.
The direct documentation, yes. So that one was kind of like, I don't know, that one just really touches on like sort of like the getting into my own headspace and like what my imagination was kind of telling me at that time. It's kind of like, I had fun with these sort of like human furniture hybrid kind of situations where I felt like, like literally like my couch was like growing out of my body at times because it was like so much.
Oh, I see now. Right.
A part of my life, or my studio table, or like, So, and the top of it, I actually wrote on a lot of the pages too.
Right.
They were journal pages, so often they had sort of like not only visual imagery but words to express what was happening. And this one says it's not about you, which was a big sort of like thing around the pandemic. I'm sure everyone's heard that phrase.
That's true.
That it was like obviously not just a single experience. It was everyone was going through this, and like how do we work together?
Well, do you want to go into like the 3 stages of this project? So you have like the stay-at-home, the erasure collages, and then the community journal.
Yeah.
Since that'd be a good idea.
Yes, that's a good idea. These were first the stay-at-home journal pages, and then as the show got closer, I knew about this actually last year, this show, but it was like time has been so weird lately, I'm sure for many people, and it was like suddenly upon me, and because all the work in the show is from this year, and a lot of it is around the pandemic, I felt like as it was getting closer that I wanted to, I was thinking about how to connect people to the exhibition in a sort of tangible way, like people that were looking at it. And so I started these, I was kind of going through the process. I started taking apart these vintage books that I had and doing sort of erasure poetry on them in a way, painting out most of the words and leaving like a word on a page or a couple of, like this one says kittens on it. This one says bubble bath. Also all kind of words that like sort of came up for me during this time, like ways to kind of ease your, what you were going through with the bubble bath or a cat or just sort of like, and it was fun to like find the word on the page, because no matter what book I found, there was something on the whatever page I was working on. There was always something within the collage,
the text,
within the page that resonated for me. And then I started. And then I would respond to whatever that word was with imagery, and then I decided that this could be a collaborative project for the show.
And hence the basket.
So I decided to create a bunch of pages with like a couple of words showing on the pages, and like this one says, let's see. find one that's let's see. For one that's kind of. So some of them I started like this one says shocking on it. And then I wrote, some of them I sort of started as letters, Dear COVID-19. And let me find one that, see if there's one that, there's an interesting one that has like a bunch of sort of responses on it.
Oh, we got a question from Pete. So are the journal pages copies? Are they changed in scale at all? So are you? So did you? I guess did you change the size? This is direct from the book, right? Like
these pages?
You just took up. Yeah. Are the journal pages copies? So.
Well, these are the.
So
he's talking about these.
Yes.
Yes. No, they're not copies. They're directly the pages from the books.
Yeah, they're deconstructed books, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the pages themselves.
So the idea was that you would pick a piece from the basket and then respond to whatever was on the page, and then you could put it back in the basket, and another person could pick up something, could pick up whatever they wanted.
Oh, thumbs up. Thank you, Pete. Thanks for your question.
Did I answer your question completely?
Yep.
It was actually important to me that they were original pages.
Yeah.
Because that is part of my process. It's like sort of finding something in existence and making something else out of it.
Yeah, it's like you use the found book as a platform.
Yeah, and so it's like that's part of the creativity. It's like it just using it as right, exactly, the found book. Yeah.
Yeah, so I've been loving what people have been putting on these things.
This one's interesting. Dear COVID-19, and then I had left Healthy World on there, and someone said, I wish for a better, healthy world without you. One where people thrive without you. One where people breathe easier without you. One where I can feel less anxious without you. I need my reading glasses, but I think I got the words correct.
Yeah.
I think I got it right.
Pete just commented, yes, I didn't know if you planned to keep the books intact or after. For after. So I see. Like, so we're going to put the books back together.
No,
that's an interesting thought.
So I got the books in an antique store, and they were already destroyed. The bindings were ripped off. So they had sort of the
spine.
The spine was kind of
destroyed, right?
Yeah.
Pre-destroyed.
Yeah. To me, it was like screaming out to make art out of.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
Yeah, but that's interesting. If I put them back together, they would be different books, obviously.
Did you white out or erase the page numbers?
Sometimes I did. Is that another question?
No. Just I'm curious. Like,
okay.
I didn't.
Sometimes
just thought
I did,
of that.
and sometimes I didn't. Like this one says, "People die all the time. Make it quick." 211. And I actually thought the numbers were interesting because
wow,
we were always seeing numbers on this, and then we still are seeing numbers, unfortunately, and
that's
we're
right.
way past 211.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Let's see, there's some really great ones in here. This one was great. This one is page 21.
Yeah, right.
And it says teachers and students. You guys can see, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm reading it to you. Like, you can't see it. A war on teachers is really a war on students. So it was interesting. Like, some people responded from a very, had a very sort of psychological experience.
Yeah, political, psychological, interpersonal.
Right.
Yeah.
This one is great. Please respect your elders.
Interesting.
I don't know.
Oh, that's part. Oh, so it's from a cover. Oh,
Yeah.
Wow.
That was like a.
Yeah.
That was like, this was a library book. I did not. I did. It was already. I didn't destroy a library book. It was already like long gone from the library. Yeah, this one has a really great drawing on it.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty wonderful.
Some people used it as to comment on my show, which was interesting too. This was
Yeah,
it's
it's
a
a
show. So that was interesting too, because it was the whole idea of like having a journal at an art opening where people sort of comment on the show, and then because it was a piece of paper that people were writing on, they used it. Some people used it as a platform for that too.
Yeah, I love that.
It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, interesting stuff.
Yeah.
All right, we're ready to move on to the skin and water painting. So that's going to be towards the front here. So we're moving up.
Yeah. Actually, one more thing I want to say about about the journals was that there was something really satisfying in. It's really sad. Like it really made the show come together,
Sure.
and it was.
Oh yeah.
It's really fun, and people were really. Like I had someone came last night and they were making a drawing on a page or writing on a page, and they looked at me and they said, "God, this is exactly what I needed. It's really therapeutic. Like I'm processing things through this." So I don't know. There was something really great about that conversation that was happening.
Yeah.
That I think I needed and a lot of other people needed. So it felt really great. So.
Oh yeah.
So
I can see that.
But the show's up for another week, so if you're in town and not like far away, like in England or something, you can come by and.
And we're very careful. We're let 2 in at a time. To the gallery. We're mainly just outside sitting and letting people come in, and it's a safe place to do that. And it's really nice because you get to be intimate with the work. When you're one-on-one with it. So yeah, please come on down and check it out.
Yeah, it was the opening was great because there was only a few people in here at a time, so it was more intimate.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to actually see the work and talk about it.
Right. Yeah.
Instead of just and the party was outside.
Correct.
The masked party was outside the gallery, so it was like you had both things going on. You were able to actually see the work and fully experience it at an art opening. Which
it was
doesn't always happen.
It was like the best of both worlds.
It was. It was great.
I'm looking at maybe I should do this going forward.
I think so.
Forever,
There's something
post-COVID, if there is one.
Yeah, for sure. There was like a respect for the work that doesn't usually happen at an opening. I always have to go back and see a show afterwards.
Yeah, because
I like to be alone with the work or in a quiet space with the work.
Yeah,
so.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, so skin and water, huh?
Okay, so this piece was actually from like January or February, so it was actually before the quarantine.
Yeah, right. And you can see that.
Yeah.
Like these 2 pieces, I feel like they reflect that.
Yeah.
And the transition,
they both were.
transition pieces.
Yeah, this piece is the only piece in the show that I actually the process of that was interesting. So I reworked something that I completely changed the piece, but there was a painting inside this frame, and I completely sort of reworked and layered, and that was an interesting process to like find something and create from something found, which I normally do, but what am I trying to say? That like there's so many layers going on. This piece was like sort of building up a lot of layers. I actually burned the fabric.
I love that was part of it, burning.
I burned part of it. So that was really scary for me because I have I had a fire years ago in my apartment. So fires, I don't even burn candles in my house. Mm-hmm. So, and I did this in my studio. But anyway, all good.
Marianne Riker says, I think it's great, more intimate. So I think I'm referring to the opening, how it was, and I cannot agree more, Marianne.
Yes, I had a lovely conversation with Marianne.
Yeah.
So I don't know that I would have. We might not have had that if there had been a lot of people.
That's right. If it was a traditional pre-COVID opening, it would have been very different.
Yeah, and I think also for me, I don't know about everyone, but it's been kind of like being inside all the time, and it's almost like overload. So it was nice just to have a few people in here.
Right.
Okay, I can handle this now. I'll take a break and go outside and see the crowd, which wasn't really that. It felt like a huge crowd. It felt like masses of people compared to.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So anyway, I'm going off on a tangent.
No.
Kind of like this piece. It sort of flows. She's the woman came at the very end, mm-hmm. not at the end, but towards the end. Originally, this piece just had sort of tons of fabric, and it was a more abstract piece.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's kind of like almost like abstract figurative to me.
Right.
And I work with the fabric too. I make dolls and I make one-of-a-kind clothing pieces and some sort of soft sculpture. So there's often fabric in my work as part of the collage element. And this one just was, there was something about the sort of mystery of the frame leading into the inside part, there was something about the building up of the layers. Like it was like, it's called Skin and Water. So I was working on a series at the time that were all sort of influenced by colors of the body, so this one has like sort of water and blood colors and then kind of flesh colors, and then there's a little bit of sort of natural greens, and that was kind of my palette, and I was...
Well, I love the intentional confusion between water and skin in that. Like it just, it's elements of both.
So tell me a little bit about that.
No, that just the flowing, like the color and the texture and the composition. It's equal parts water and skin. Oh,
I love it.
So that's the sensation that
I love that, right? Because it's floating in water, kind of like around.
And then like the color, right. Every there's you can make an argument for either in this that's water, or that's skin.
Oh, I like that.
Or it's I feel both. Right?
Yeah, I like that. There's also kind of a like, because of the water, sort of the blue around it, you're kind of like being pulled into this fantasy world, and it's just interesting to me that this happened right before the like quarantine too, because it was kind of like this, there's like this image of like sort of freedom in the chaos of like all these sort of lines and turbulent kind of emotional things that are happening with the fabric, I think, to me. So, and the burning, and then there was this sort of like almost like a 1950s kind of image, almost like that, like sort of like, hello, everything's perfect, like, even though it's not.
Right.
Like, so,
it never was.
Yes. But also, like I said, I loved the frame, and I was inspired somehow. Like, the frame became a collage element for me. Like, often I'll see an image or something that I want to include in a piece, and I find a part of it that I like, that works, that sort of breathes life into the whole piece for me. So there was something about the way the frame like integrated with the piece, where it was like a story within like another world, kind of like the other pieces, the way there's like collaged squares on top of it. It's almost like a world within a world, like, if that makes sense.
Right. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The windows.
Yeah, the windows. It's a window. That's it. The skin and water window. That's the best kind of window. Anyway, but I actually had a lot of fun with that fabric, because this happened towards the end where it became almost like a wave.
Right.
Like it's a flesh color, but to me it's also like a wave of water. And this was from this really awesome vintage dress that was completely falling apart. It's actually a 1950s dress. It's funny, but
there it is.
It's all beaded and rhinestoned, and it was just beyond help as far as wearing it, but it worked its way into this piece. So
there you go. Well, thank you.
Yeah. So.
All right.
And this actually has a boudoir feeling too.
It sure does.
Yes, it's a very feminine piece.
And
in particular, I think.
And it flows from the beginning to the end. Like this whole show. I feel like this is a good way to start it. So hence it's number one.
Right.
Ready to move on to the inside.
Yeah, we started at the last one. And went
it's
back.
great.
That was kind of cool too. I like that.
Yeah, no, it's good to kind of what's the term? Reverse engineer the show.
Yeah, for sure. I wanted to start with Claustrophobic Boudoir, since that was the title of the show. So that makes sense, I'm sure. But I might have said that already. But now you know again.
Yeah, just in case.
If there's any confusion.
Just in case.
Okay, so inside my body.
Yeah.
So this piece is a mixed media piece on wood, and it's quite different from the other ones. This was later. I think this was July. I finished this in July, I think. and I was starting to look up images of the coronavirus under a microscope and the way it looked. And I was completely floored at how beautiful it looked. It was such a horrible thing could be so beautiful under a microscope. So I started to, and there's space in this piece, which is different from, I think, all the other pieces.
Yeah, it gets
there's
more
a lot
and more.
of space.
It gets slowly more claustrophobic as you go through. You know.
Right, but this one to me is like there's breathing room in it, and I think that that was kind of a relief for me to create something. I needed that, I think, at the time. But it was a very there's some hair collaged into here. There's sort of there's a couple of the pieces have like. I liked the way the kind of like human element mixed with the abstraction in this piece, but also has some furniture elements going on at the top, that kind of boudoir like dressing table mirror at the top. There's the boudoir again.
That's right, comes back.
But there was something, it was a very different piece for me because it almost had like that feeling of looking under a microscope in parts too. There were sort of these like tendrils coming off in rounded shapes and
So what part of the body is this referencing? If it's inside my body, you know, were you thinking about specific parts? So I can see a variety of them in here.
I think it was just sort of like literally just up through the body, like coming up through the body, like just. Nothing. It wasn't really specific, but I think because of the water too, and because the work that came after, like during the pandemic, came out of that idea of colors of the body. The earlier piece I was showing you. That was still like in my vocabulary visually, and so the water is like huge. You know, it kind of. Inside, like the sort of colors of the body also came out of like, without getting too personal, like sort of things that happen hormonally to women when they're in their 50s. Like that's been kind of going through my brain. So it's like, that was kind of like the fluids of the body and how the body changes was very much on my mind when I was working on the Colors of the Body series. And then with the COVID-19 and looking at the coronavirus under a microscope, like I was saying. Actually, I had a scientist here last night seeing my show, and she works on the coronavirus, so it was and she loves this piece. And I had only met her one time before, and I had forgotten that she was a scientist as well as owning a cafe. But anyway, she really responded to this piece. And that was interesting. Another tangent I'm going off on.
Yes. No,
I love the tangents.
That's important. That's important.
But reel me back in. What was I talking about now? The colors of the body.
Right, the body itself.
And the hormonal changes led me to that work. And then when I looked at under a microscope, the coronavirus, I was still thinking about like water and cells and what happens to the body. And it was sort of like, it was almost like if your body was like was like completely porous or something, and the water, like it just, you become, I don't know. It was very, there was something about looking at that imagery under the microscope that was kind of like, it almost created this kind of amoeba shape, sort of like this is kind of, one of the things that, like there's sort of like the human hair going on, but then there's like a lot of deconstruction of the work, which is different from my other pieces. Like I really like the collage just kept going, and it, as I worked the layers over the days and months, it like, it's just there's the imageries kind of comes out of that. I mean, this shape in the middle was sort of like also like a science. That's actually a piece of batik fabric, which like to me was like I saw that image and I was like, oh, that like it just instinctively felt right for this piece. That fabric happened towards the end, but
And I feel like looking at it, it looks to me, it's almost like all the organs together. So I see heart, I see lungs, I see all these different
right.
you know what I mean, like the innards, like the torso. It's like the full torso is kind of represented in layers here and just that's the the imagery that I see. Like this middle part is a heart, and around it are the lungs. And then you have like
this is the heart.
Yeah, like that's
And these are the lungs.
Right, exactly. Like, well, the lungs are the outline right here, right above the heart. Just that's. I took a very literal approach to it.
I love that. So that's a really good point actually, because when I title my pieces, which I do, like I said at the end, I think I mentioned that. It's usually an instinctive reaction to the piece, and I don't like. It's not a lot of it's happening on a subconscious level, and it feels right. It just works for me. It's like on a lot of levels. So I love that you see that, because that does make sense, even though it wasn't conscious to me when I was creating it. But I know that it made sense on a certain level. Like it looked right for the title, for all the images I chose, and the composition,
the color, like
the colors,
the
definitely.
color, yeah.
It has a lot of really peaceful colors in it, this piece, as opposed to black also. So, which is ironic because it was inspired by looking at the coronavirus under a microscope, which was really beautiful. Or not actually looking at images of it, and all the other pieces have this sort of darkness around what was going on psychologically, but then the piece that was influenced by the visuals is beautiful, like the virus looked beautiful under the microscope. It's like, I don't know, it's interesting. Like
it's the light and dark coming together.
So I mean, I think also the other thing that I'd like to say about that is that even in something dark like the coronavirus, like there's beauty in everything, I think, and you can make find beauty in everything,
right.
In some way, creatively, and I think that is really, that's why I make art, one of the main reasons.
Yeah, right.
So, to kind of translate things for myself, for my audience, and
getting back to the original thought about documenting this is important, because the last pandemic we had, there was very little. So this is important to make this stuff so that future generations can see and hear and understand what we were going through, and they may have a better grasp on how to handle it. So I feel like that's important to do as well. Like your documentation is critical for the future and history and so on.
I mean, people asked me if I kept a journal during this time, and like a written journal, and I actually kind of did, but I made this work. I mean, this was my journal,
right? And you're a visual artist, so you're going to have a visual journal.
Right.
Makes sense. All right. Well, I think that's a great way to end it. So thank you, Nicole. Tremendous. So really.
Thank you. Thanks for everyone for listening.
Yeah. Thank you for watching.
It was really great to explore my own work through this.
I agree.
And share things with everyone.
And feel free to post questions about this. Nicole and I will be responding to that. So even afterwards, and thank you for watching, and we'll keep the conversation going. All right. So
have a great day.
Yeah.
Thanks,
thank you,
everyone.
Thank you, Nicole. And thank you, everybody.